Imagine you're a soldier on a World War II battlefield, right? Surrounded by allies, but they all speak different languages.
Yeah,
Lives depend on, being able to communicate clearly, but how do you cut through all that chaos?
right.
Well, that's the challenge that actually gave birth to Essential English, this system that was designed to just boil communication down to its bare essentials.
Yeah.
And you were kind enough to share some material on this
Yes.
essentialenglish.pdf. And today we're taking a deep dive into it,
Yeah.
into just how powerful simplicity can be.
It's fascinating, how this system that was born from necessity, in the trenches,
Yeah,
became this model for clear communication, and is still used today.
right.
I mean, think about it. If it worked under the pressure of a war zone,
Yeah.
imagine how effective it could be in just everyday life.
Well, okay, but 850 words, I mean, is that really enough to get your point across?
Right.
It sounds more like a party game
Right.
than an actual path to fluency.
That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
creators of Essential English didn't just, pick words out of a hat.
Yeah.
They focused on versatility.
Okay.
So instead of getting lost in this huge sea of synonyms,
Right.
you've got this focused set of tools that you can use to build tons of different phrases.
So instead of memorizing, a huge dictionary,
Right.
it's more about mastering the art of combination.
Exactly.
Kind of
Yeah.
like those chefs you see on TV sometimes. They can just whip up endless dishes
Yeah.
with just like a few key ingredients.
Exactly. And that approach really did have a lasting impact.
Mm.
I mean, it influenced language learning,
Yeah.
international communication efforts
Interesting.
for decades. I mean, it's really a testament to the power of focusing on what really matters, the core message.
Well, speaking of the core message,
Right.
let's unpack the grammar side of things.
Okay.
I'm always so curious about, how simplifying grammar rules actually works when you put it into practice.
Well, Essential English prioritizes, clear,
Yeah.
direct sentences.
Okay.
It's all about, the subject, the verb, and the object.
Mm-hmm.
No super convoluted clauses
Yeah.
or passive voice to kind of muddy things up.
So if I wanted to say, I've been eagerly anticipating this deep dive all week,
Okay.
how would Essential English boil that down?
You might say something like, I want this talk now.
Wow.
You see how it just cuts through all the fluff
Yeah.
and gets right to the point.
It almost feels like a linguistic detox.
Right.
And I can definitely see how that would be helpful,
Yeah.
especially for somebody who's new to English.
Absolutely. And think about how that would translate into real-world situations.
Yeah.
Let's say you're in a foreign country.
Okay.
You're trying to navigate public transportation.
Right.
You don't need to know, 1,000 words for train schedule,
Yeah.
ticket machine. You can just point and say train. Where? Right?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Suddenly, those complex situations feel a lot less daunting.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a grammar guru
Right.
to make yourself understood.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the vocabulary and the grammar.
Yeah.
Essential English really emphasizes pronunciation,
Right.
tone of voice,
Uh-huh.
body language. It's a very holistic approach to communication.
Okay.
It's about using every tool at your disposal to really bridge that gap between languages.
It makes you realize just how much we rely on those unspoken cues.
Right.
Even, in our native tongue.
Mm-hmm.
A well-placed shrug
Right.
or an emphatic tone can sometimes speak volumes.
Absolutely. It makes me wonder,
Yeah.
if learning a simplified version of a language could actually make us better communicators overall.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just stripping away the complexities,
Yeah.
force us to be more mindful
Right.
of how we're expressing ourselves.
That's a really intriguing question.
Yeah.
If we're forced to be more deliberate with our word choices,
Yeah.
maybe it refines our ability to convey meaning even when we're not using Essential English.
Exactly.
It's almost like a mental workout
right.
for communication.
So let's dig into some of the actual phrases
Okay.
from the guide that you shared, essentialenglish.pdf.
Yeah.
There's some real gems in there that showcase how practical the system is.
There are definitely some that instantly jump out at me as being useful. Like,
Yeah.
where is? Like,
Yeah.
how much, the building blocks
Yeah.
of basic interaction.
And I'm drawn to how direct some of the phrases are,
Yeah.
like please speak slowly
Right.
or I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's about just
Yeah.
owning those early stages
Yeah.
of language learning without fear.
It's about empowering learners to advocate
With
for their
this.
own understanding.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful message.
Right.
And it actually reminds me of something that you said earlier
Hmm.
about Essential English having the potential
Yeah.
to make us more effective communicators,
Right.
even in our native language.
Yeah.
If we're more conscious of clarity and precision.
Uh-huh.
In a simplified system, doesn't that translate to better communication overall?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a distillation process.
Hmm.
By boiling language down to its essentials,
Yeah.
we might discover this whole new level of clarity and intention
Wow.
in how we communicate.
This deep dive is already making me rethink my
Yeah.
entire approach to language.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's break down some of those essential phrases
Right.
and see how they actually work in practice.
Let's explore that.
Okay.
Let's explore how those simple building blocks can be combined
Yeah.
to express surprisingly complex ideas.
Are you ready to have your linguistic assumptions challenged?
Bring it on. Welcome back to our exploration of essential English. We saw how it, emerged from the battlefields of World War II.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of curious to see how this lean, mean communication machine, actually performs out in the real world.
Exactly. Let's ditch the trenches and fast forward to a scenario I think we can all relate to.
Okay.
Travel.
Right.
Picture yourself in a bustling foreign city. You're navigating unfamiliar streets.
Yeah.
You're trying to order food in a language that you barely know.
Right.
Can essential English really save today?
Absolutely. I mean, this is where the magic of simplification really shines.
Okay.
Remember, essential English strips away all the fluff,
Yeah.
and it leaves you with just those core tools you need
Okay.
to communicate clearly.
But isn't travel all about, those nuanced experiences, the local slang,
Yeah.
the colorful expressions?
Right?
Doesn't essential English kind of flatten all that out?
That's a good point. But think about it this way. Essential English isn't about replacing cultural immersion.
Okay.
It's about providing a safety net.
Hmm.
It makes sure that even if you stumble over idioms or you miss those subtle cues,
Right.
you can still communicate your basic needs.
Okay, so it's like having a linguistic Swiss Army knife.
Exactly.
It's always there when you need it,
Right.
but it's not meant to replace the full toolkit.
Exactly. And in those travel moments when you're tired, you're hungry, or you're just plain lost,
Yeah.
that Swiss Army knife could be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to explain a dietary restriction.
Oh, yeah.
Or asking for directions when you're feeling flustered.
Right.
Essential English can cut through all that panic.
Yeah.
And it allows you to just express yourself clearly.
I can see how that would be incredibly empowering.
Right?
Especially for someone who's hesitant to speak a new language.
Yeah.
It removes that fear of making a mistake,
Mhm.
and it allows you to just focus on the interaction itself.
Right. And don't forget about the power of nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Essential English encourages you to pair those simple phrases with, gestures,
Right.
facial expressions,
Uh-huh.
tone of voice,
Okay.
all of those elements that transcend language barriers.
So it's about becoming a master communicator.
Yes,
Not just a walking dictionary.
precisely. And those skills can be applied, far beyond travel.
Yeah.
Let's say you're in a business meeting
Okay.
and you need to explain a complex concept to a colleague who doesn't share your native language.
Right.
Essential English can help you break down those ideas into these digestible chunks.
That's an interesting application. I've always thought of business language as being quite formal,
Yeah,
jargon-filled.
right.
How does essential English cut through that?
It's all about finding the core message,
Right.
the essence of what you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Think of it like a distillation process.
Okay.
You're removing the impurities
Yeah.
and you're leaving behind just the potent stuff.
It's like crafting the perfect elevator pitch.
Exactly.
Clear, concise, and impossible to misunderstand.
Right. And that clarity is essential,
Yeah.
in any profession where clear communication is key.
Hmm.
From, giving instructions to
Right.
presenting ideas.
It seems like this allotch could have real implications for global collaboration.
Yeah.
Especially, in today's interconnected world.
Uh-huh.
Imagine teams from different countries
Right.
working together seamlessly,
Yeah.
using essential English as that common ground.
Yeah.
It could revolutionize the way we do business.
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
It speaks to the underlying principle of essential English,
Hmm.
that communication is about connection,
Right.
not just complexity.
But does simplifying language risk oversimplifying thought?
Right.
I mean, is there a danger of losing nuance and depth
Yeah.
when we reduce communication to its bare essentials?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one that we'll, delve into further
Okay.
in the next part of our deep dive.
All right.
But for now, let's put our essential English skills to the test.
Okay.
We talked about how those 850 words
Yeah.
can be combined to express complex ideas.
Right.
Are you ready for a little challenge?
I'm always up for a linguistic experiment. What do you have in mind?
Let's try to describe this very deep dive,
Okay.
this exploration of language and communication,
Yeah.
using only those essential building blocks.
Okay, game on. Let's see. We learn words have power.
I like it. Short, sweet, and to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how would you describe that feeling of being understood in a foreign country,
Okay.
of connecting with someone across a language barrier
Yeah.
using just those essential tools?
That's a tricky one. Let's see. Words, different meaning, same. We understand, we happy.
You see, it's
Yeah.
not about eloquence.
Right.
It's about that spark of connection.
This is really making me rethink my entire approach to communication.
Mm.
Maybe less really is more.
Yeah.
But before I chuck my thesaurus out the window,
Okay.
I am eager to explore the potential downsides of this approach.
Right.
Could simplifying language actually hinder our ability to express ourselves fully?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
And we'll tackle those questions head on in the final part of our deep dive.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this idea of essential English, and so far it's been a pretty compelling case for simplicity. But I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. Or should I say the 851st word?
Okay.
What are we missing
Mm.
when we streamline language like this so drastically?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, we've seen how essential English can break down those barriers
Right.
and really empower communication.
Yeah.
But could it also create new ones?
Interesting.
It's like comparing a scalpel to a Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
Both have their uses,
Right.
but you wouldn't perform surgery with a multi-tool.
So are we sacrificing precision for practicality?
Possible.
Could focusing on just 850 words actually stunt our language development
Yeah.
in the long run?
That's a valid concern.
Okay.
Some argue that fluency requires exposure to a rich tapestry of vocabulary and grammar.
Right.
The kind of linguistic ecosystem that allows you to express those subtle shades of meaning.
It makes me think of those wine connoisseurs
Oh, yeah.
who can detect hints of blackberry and tobacco in a single sip.
Yeah.
Can you really appreciate the full spectrum of flavor
Right?
if you've only ever tasted grape juice?
Exactly. Language is just as nuanced as any fine wine.
Yeah.
There are certain concepts and emotions and arguments that just can't be conveyed
Hmm.
with a limited vocabulary.
Right.
Think about poetry,
Okay.
literature,
Right.
even complex legal documents.
Uh-huh.
They rely on the full expressive power of language.
So Essential English is a fantastic tool
Yeah.
for those foundational stages of communication.
Right.
But it's not a substitute for immersing yourself in the full richness of a language.
No.
It's like learning to play an instrument. You start with scales and simple melodies,
Uh-huh.
but eventually you want to tackle those intricate sonatas.
Absolutely. And it's important to acknowledge that, language isn't just about conveying information.
Right.
It's also about shaping our thoughts and perceptions.
Oh,
The
interesting.
words we use
Yeah.
influence the way we see the world.
So could sticking to a simplified vocabulary
Yeah.
limit our cognitive flexibility? Does it create a kind of linguistic tunnel vision?
It's an intriguing question,
Yeah.
and it's one that researchers are still exploring.
Okay.
Some argue that exposure to a diverse range of language actually enhances our cognitive abilities.
Oh,
It allows us to think more creatively
interesting.
and to solve problems more effectively.
Like having multiple lenses
Exactly.
to view the world through.
Right.
Each one offering a different perspective.
And then there's the cultural dimension to consider.
Oh, right.
Each language carries with it
Yeah.
this unique set of cultural nuances and idioms and expressions
Yeah.
that you just can't translate directly.
It's like trying to explain the concept of head
Right.
to someone who's never experienced a cozy Danish winter evening.
Exactly. Some things are best understood through lived experience.
So while Essential English is a powerful tool
Yeah,
for fostering that initial understanding,
right.
it's important to be aware of its limitations.
Yeah,
To acknowledge that sometimes a simple yes or no
right.
just can't convey the full complexity
Yeah.
of human experience.
It raises a fascinating question.
What's that?
In our quest for this clear, concise communication,
Yeah.
are we losing something essential
Hmm.
about language itself?
Yeah.
That beauty of ambiguity, the power of poetry,
Uh-huh.
the ability to evoke emotions through carefully chosen words.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone from the battlefields of World War II to the nuances of cultural expression,
Right.
all through this lens of Essential English.
Yeah.
What a ride.
It's been a fascinating exploration
It has.
of how language shapes our world
Yeah.
and how even a simplified system like this can reveal these profound insights
Hmm.
about communication.
Well, I think the key takeaway here
Yeah.
is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language.
Right.
Essential English is a valuable tool,
Yeah.
but it's just that it's a tool.
Right. It's up to us to use it wisely,
Yeah.
to recognize its strengths and its limitations. and to appreciate that full spectrum of human expression that language offers.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And as our world becomes increasingly more interconnected, it's more important than ever to be mindful communicators,
Right.
to bridge those linguistic and cultural divides
Yeah.
with both clarity and empathy.
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there,
Yeah.
we encourage you to embrace the power of language in all its forms.
Right.
From the simplest phrases
Yeah.
to the most intricate prose, explore new languages,
Yeah.
experiment with different styles,
Right.
and never stop seeking those moments of connection
Right.
that make communication truly meaningful.
And perhaps along the way, you'll discover the beauty of both simplicity and complexity,
Right.
those two sides of the linguistic coin that make language such a fascinating and endlessly rewarding pursuit.
Well said.
On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Essential English. We hope it's sparked some new ideas about language communication and the power of finding the right words for every occasion. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing. And remember, sometimes less is more, but sometimes more is more. RACR.